as Rhett Favre, but I am going to be going over my Warlock gameplay today. I've seen a lot of guides, a bit like gearing guides, best in slot guides, talent choices, different builds you can go for AQ40. So this is a Phase 5 VoD review. I'm going to be going over my most recent DMF run with my guild, some of the stuff I tried to do, things that I do to change it up, and this is from the perspective of a Warlock who's tanking both Twin Imps, and we do a Oro tanking strat, which you will see later. But I just kind of wanted to break it down, and if you guys find it useful, that'd be great. We're not the fastest guild. We only do about an hour clear right now, but we are obviously hoping to do sub 1 hour clears moving forward, so this could be useful for any of you that aren't used to that sort of speed. So yeah, let's get into it. This is just my character now, but what we'll be looking at is actually my character before he got his femur, so that was a recent job. I had no 2.5 on. I was just wearing Nemesis chest and Nemesis shoulders for the 23 spell damage. Yeah, so some upgrades that weren't even part of this. And also, I didn't do terrible. Let's see, let's go to damage done. So we have me right here as a tank warlock, so that's actually not bad because I'm missing out on quite a bit of damage on 2 bosses. And then I'm a little gimped on some trash, but yeah. So that's the kind of parts we're trying to chase. I think our main warlock Fax is 26th world right now. He might have got dropped down a little bit, I'm not sure, but he's exceptionally competitive. So yeah, this is the gap, and I'll go over a few things that we did differently too as we go through the VoD. So let's see. I'm gonna speed it up a little bit. So the first thing I'd like to point out is when you're world buffed and your guild is competitive and you want to be competitive, you don't need to mana drain these guys. You can kill them way before they explode. So you don't need to waste time on that cast. You'll increase your damage uptime doing that. I got PI'd there because I was testing the macro for a new priest that was assigned to me. Another thing here is knowing the right priorities for the kill targets on these noob sets. Obviously, if there's a reflect mob up, the first thing I do is I actually do my curse assign on all the other 3 targets so that the curse will be up and it won't reflect the curse. So, because a lot of times the spell reflect mobs are the ones that are priority kills. I think mending is the first one you kill, but you're not always going to get mending, and there's almost always a spell reflect mob, so it's very likely that he'll be reflecting a spell school. So it's very important to get a curse up, especially if it's a shadow frost reflect. As far as optimizing my damage here, obviously it's about pushing as many shadow bolts in as I can. Shadow bolt's your optimal damage source. It's the most DPS you're going to get possible, but sometimes the mobs will die too fast or very slowly, in which case you have either a faster casting spell that you're going to utilize or a filler. Most of the time it's corruption for a lot of other warlocks. If there's not enough time, you're going to do a Searing Pain, a Shadow Burn. But here I choose to go with Immolate because I'm emberstorm spec, so it's DS Ember, which means that I'm getting a lot of extra fire damage, and I also went for the deeper upfront immolate damage because with that talented, I can actually use it as a filler instead of corruption, and it'll do more damage than corruption will, even with your succubus sacked for the 15 shadow damage. So immolate's very useful here. And also, I should mention though, it is a little bit better for me because I have a 3-piece rank 12 set that I'm wearing. So it clips the GCD a little bit, which makes it an even faster cast. But yeah, so here I'm doing some trinket swaps. I'm getting my ZHC ready for Scarum. Scarum is a little wacky because right now we have it so that everyone's assigned a position, which I think is just so we can spread the damage properly. But you'll notice that as a warlock, it can be a little bit difficult. I think I'm also testing arcane bombs here. Yeah, you can see me try and get an arcane bomb off. So this is first time attempting to use them, and it did not go well. Every mob in AQ is immune to arcane bombs. So if anyone else was thinking about trying it, don't. So yeah, Scarum obviously dies very quickly. Is very difficult to get actually even a full Shadow Bolt off on his copies. So it's almost better just to stick to the spot that you're in. So like I'm middle, I should just be casting on middle pretty much every time. Almost killed one of my friends there, had to tab target. He's going down, and boom. I might have gotten 4 or 5 Shadow Bolts off. I think I did like 10k damage on that fight, so it was pretty poor. If you're going to get a really good parse and that's what you're about, then you're probably going to have to cheese Scarum and ignore the mechanics of the fight itself. That or just make up for it by being an absolute monster on trash. Notice I'm one of the first guys up. I'm trying to get prepped for the next pull. I'm not sure if I do a trinket swap here. So I think I'm going to precast Immolates. Yep, these don't have a lot of health, and then I'll probably kill the Brainwasher. Oh, yep. And then I'm getting Hellfires off. So yeah, I have extra fire damage, so it just makes sense. I think I made a mistake here. I would probably stick to trying to get a Shadow Bolt off instead of a Hellfire. Hellfire will never outperform a world buffed Warlock's Shadow Bolt, especially one with a flask, which I am flasked for this, unless there's more than 5 targets. Or potentially if you're clipping your Shadow Bolt, like if you're not going to be able to kill the mob, or I'm sorry, if the mob dies before you can get a Shadow Bolt off, then yeah, obviously the Hellfire is the way to go because you probably get 2 ticks out of it. So yeah, I'm immolating everything because it dies really fast. I'm kind of clipping the immolate too, so that is probably a mistake. I should probably just do an immolate on the last target after a curse, and then curse Brainwasher, Shadow Bolt him. But this is kind of like go, 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 and this is our first time with a legitimate DMF run in AQ40, so it's a very, very big learning experience for me. So I think I should have potentially sappered there. It's still on cooldown, as you guys can see right here. It's bottom of my screen. And it's useful just to have a lip on cooldown for these, because these mobs do knock you up, and you can stop yourself from taking that fall damage. So this is actually really important too. These guys mind control, and you do want to optimize with AoE, but you can't AoE after the first few seconds because they will mind control your teammates and you'll kill them. So I did an early AoE, and then boom, I think someone gets mind controlled maybe a second or 2 later, unless we killed them too fast. Nope, there it is. Okay. And what I usually do is I'll Curse of Wreck my tanker, my melee DPS, in case they want to be immune to fear going into this bug trio. It's very useful. Plus, you know, they get more attack power from Curse of Wreck, so you're pumping up their damage. This needs to be communicated with your guild, because you do not want any of the mages or druids to decurse them. So, and then I didn't have any, you know, AoE NG items for this. I just tossed up the Immolates, put up a curse, and started Shadow Bolting, I think. Yep, here's a Shadow Bolt, getting rid of the Mind Slayers, or Brainwashers, sorry. And we usually do not kill the Guardians early, because they're the ones that knock people up. Yeah, you don't want to kill them like in the middle of everybody. It's a little tough. At least not without having good positioning, so you can get knocked up into the walls. Bug trio is pretty simple. Priests, if your guild is on top of it, the priest will be pre-fear warding basically every second after Scarum leading up to this. Also, if you're speed killing up, I would advise killing Yaj, because she kind of ruins the element of the DBS. But we killed Kree because we're a little inexperienced and we're just kind of learning. We thought that the Poison was going to be a big threat. Look, I'm outranging the fear on this. So yeah, we've got Kree down, and then look, I get too close to Yaj. I think what I'm doing is I'm trying to put some debuffs on both of them, and then I was going to get into a better position, but I just couldn't fit it all in. But ideally, you want to optimize by getting out of that fear range at all times. So yeah, look, and I got feared, and she was about to die, so I was like, probably not worth it. I threw something on Vem, and these died pretty quickly to mages, so I would say actually ignore them. I typically have been trying to help them with it, but it's just not worth it. We're just not going to get any damage out of it. We're not going to be very helpful, and the mage is just going to pump right there. So yeah, just single target. That's our bread and butter, honestly. We can try and be competitive in the AoE field, and you can stand out amongst other warlocks, but you really won't edge out ahead DPS-wise by trying to be a multi-target king. Let's see if I want to skip ahead a little bit. I don't want to skip too. Well, no, these pulls are important. So this is where I typically cycle a bop and a lip early, and then don't use any more after the first 2 pulls because you're gonna want them for Sartura. This is because I heavily macro Whispering several Paladins, just in case some of them have it on cooldown or aren't prepared or whatever. But yeah, I am cycling Immolates on all of them. These have some setup time, so you actually can get quite a bit out of the Immolate dot. I would say if you're SM Ruin, you do the same thing. You'd probably just Corruption 3 or 4 as prep. Get your curses up as well. I failed in this raid, but in the very next raid that we went to, I was more of a curse bot moving into this. And normally I would move in and get like a big Hellfire out with a bop. I think the pool was a little sloppy, so and I got some immediate aggro, so we just kind of watched out for that. And then look, yeah, here's an opportunity for a sapper, which I do not advise here, by the way. I would use a dense dynamite if possible, or a thorium grenade, whatever you bring. I think I even use mortar sometimes, because I like to sapper on Sartura. However, I would say that having sappered Sartura and her head several times, I have gotten a good parse or 2, but in reality, I think it's a distraction from being able to do maximum damage. I think you should get into a safe position and immediately get those shadow bolts off once your curses are up. Curses obviously being a big prio. If you're Curse of Shadows Warlock and you're in a 3 Warlock raid, then you might be able to get like the advantage of not needing to Curse of Shadows the extra mobs and just Curse of Shadows Sartura herself. But if you're in a multiple Warlock raid, then you should be Curse of Shadowing every mob. I'm sorry, more than 3 Warlock raid. So yeah, I'm gonna try and move my trinkets around, get a mortar out of this while I'm waiting on thorium and dense. Really, it's just another source of damage, and I'm not getting a whole lot out of a Toeb on all of these pulls. Unless I precast it on all the Immolates. And I can pull aggro with 1 crit as is, so yeah, so I got a guy coming at my ass just from 1 ammo crit, which is not necessarily anyone's fault. So yeah, I'm gonna throw the mortar, and I'm gonna try and deal with this moon guy, and I make the conscious decision to just say, fuck it, let's kill this dude before he kills me. Okay, so I think we're moving into our Sartura pull. There might be 1 pull left. No, I think we're going straight into her. So something I do a lot here. This might be the only fight I haven't done it. Let's see if I do. Nope. Yeah. So I almost always wear rocket boots on Sartura. Rocket boots are so useful. Yes, you can lip and you might get a bop, but that's a might, and you just don't want to risk that death. It's just not worth it. So I equip rocket boots, and it makes my mobility so great that I never have to worry about it. So yeah, you can see me putting up curses, putting up dots, and then shadow bolting the shit out of Skull X. So there should be so if I messed up here in this raid, I didn't put a curse on square fast enough. There it is. But I had 1 on Sartura, which is good. So yeah, as you can see, I'm getting lucky here. If she comes at me, I lip there. If she comes at me again and I don't have a bob, then I'm dead. Guaranteed. And then you also want to be able to optimize your shadow bolts. So being able to reposition very easily, very quickly, allows you to get more shadow bolts in, which is going to be the most damage you can put out in the entire raid. The more shadow bolts you have, the more damage you'll do. It's a simple mathematical, non-equation, but simple math. You can try and supplement it with as many other damage sources in your arsenal and in your toolkit as you want, which I do. I tend to have like 5 to 6 more sources of damage being used than a normal warlock. And that's because I min-max as much as possible. I'm using all these trinkets. I use a lot of different spells. If I'm SM Ruin, I'm actually putting my fire shield on for my imp constantly for like this stuff, because you edge out on some damage here. But really, you just can't catch up to the amount of power in a Shadow Bolt. It's just such a strong spell. It scales very well. Oops, excuse me. You get the double crit, double damage on crit, and you get a lot of damage out of it if you have a Shadow Weaver or a Shadow Priest in your raid group for that 15% extra shadow damage. So we were a little slow on the gauntlet here. I would actually say what typically is going to happen is if you're slow like this, you might be able to edge out with some AoE damage. If your guild is really fast, you will never stop moving. All you'll be doing as a warlock is cursing this Vecnus soldier, shadow burning him and death coiling him. Maybe hoping for a nightfall proc if you're nightfall spec'd, and then moving forward the whole time. And if you have a grenade, you can throw a grenade. In fact, the very next time we did this, we were just blitzing through. We never stopped moving, and the mage just basically just take it home. So, yet another reason why it's, you know, warlock is gonna struggle to keep up with the damage output of a mage, because there's a lot of, in speed runs, there's just so many great opportunities for cleave, and we can't do it on the move. So, it's, you know, it's a mobile game. So we're moving into Fankris Gauntlet, and I think we move straight in. I might have even facepulled this, but that was because they said something about go, go, go. I think the warrior tank wanted us to wait. Oh, it wasn't me this time. Good. Yeah, so the second time I did it, but yeah, it was a rogue. So this is actually a tank and spank Fankris god awful boss that they built with absolutely no brain. Yeah, they have a couple of mechanics, but you can almost ignore it all and just kill the shit out of them. Yeah, hope for crits, beg your guild masters / officers for PIs, and pump some shadow bolts into them. And obviously get damage on a worm before it dies. If you can get a shadow bolt off a worm, that'd be great, but it's probably gonna be something like a Searing Pain Shadow Burn. I think I got an immolate off, and one shadow bolt. Yeah, so caught my raid sleeping and got some extra damage out. I don't think they actually count towards your parse anyway, so, but yeah, just playing the mechanic properly. Then we move straight into Visc Room. What I typically like to do is use this Ramstein's bolts. They're not immune. Get some extra nature damage out of it. AoE. I think the highest I've ever gotten out of it was like 1200 damage, so that's pretty good. And then I've also gotten the Sapper done as low as 2k, so that's not too far behind the Sapper. But yeah, you want to use the Sapper and the bolt and get a few casts off before the mobs get pulled in. This is a pretty clear-cut fight. All you do is get your entire guild to farm up poison elixirs and, venom sacks from LBRS. Trade them to him before you start the run. Use them on cooldown every time he does a poison volley. When your greater nature protection potion is eaten up, absorb as much damage as you can, you reactivate it. And then get him to shatter and blow him up. So this is something that I think is kind of useful for the spec that I came as, with the upfront immolate damage, because it allows me to get quite a few immolates off before they move in. I probably could have gotten 4. I misjudged it a little bit there. So boom, boom. So yeah, Sapper into my Ramstein's bolt. Easy money and decent damage. And then you're just frost wanding. Okay, so we can move past this. Visc dies. Let's see. We learned that these guys are actually kind of easy to handle, especially if you have leftover venom sacks, because you can just get rid of their poison instantly and let the healers just spam heal. So you can actually pull like 4 of these at once and just tank them all, cleave them down, just curse, shadow bolt. They have a decent amount of health, so they're not going to die so fast that you can't get a shadow bolt off. Move past that. Okay, so these are big pulls. I think this might be the night where we did a triple pull. This is a double pack, but we did a triple pack the other night. So obviously it's manageable, but it actually is also very, very dangerous. And the best way to deal with that pull, if you can get them congregated and everyone can stack up properly, which is very, very important because they do that charge, is getting the dispels up immediately, using the venom sacks if you have them, which we did. I had 4 left. Most people probably had at least 2. So you got to immediately dispel yourself. If you don't have sacks, make sure your healers immediately dispel you, because that damage will hurt. And you can lip, bop, the whole raid can basically do it. And boom, Sapper / grenade. You won't have a Sapper actually, because, yeah, so 35 seconds because Visc. So yeah, Dense Dynamite, whatever you have. AoE, spam, they all have low health. Like all those mobs are not high health mobs, so they'll just melt. If you want to be conservative as a warlock and your guild's not killing these things quickly enough, and there's that threat of death, and that high threat from your AoE spells, I would just say use an engineering item, like right now, toss some dots up, and then start blasting. Typically, we do like to kill the stingers, not the wasps, but the stinger was in a weird position, so you just kill the mobs that are readily available. There's a lot of times where you'll see me killing something that probably shouldn't be a kill prio normally, but just to get to the mob, right, just to get into a different position to kill that mob, you would lose so much damage that it would just not be worth it when you could have killed something else and probably gotten 8k damage, you know, out of that situation. So there's never a reason to just lose 8k damage. You always optimize. But that's going to be a judgment call. You're not going to know that every time. So same thing, I'm just doing setup. Boom, killed the stinger right away. Got some good burst off on him. I fail to do enough shadow burning here. And that's a big thing, is bringing enough soul shards, draining soul when you have the opportunity. But it's really more clutch to get the proper shadow burn off in time. You probably will always end up wasting like 15 shards on shadow burn just to do some mobile damage on the move, even when a mob's not low health. But when you can, always try and get a shadow burn off on a mob before swapping off, especially if there's that shadow vulnerability up from your shadow bolts, your improved shadow bolt debuff. I usually take this back spot so that I don't get caught in someone else's silence. Who's a pretty simple fight. Debuff. I got my Emulate up as my filler, so a lot of you, that's just going to be a corruption. And then boom, praying for the Shadow Bolt crits, which I got quite a few. But yeah, and I think that was a decent parse for me as well. Unless I just started missing spells. So yeah, this trinket pop. I usually will get a PI or a trinket set up at 40% health. I think I waited a little bit long and lost out on it. Yeah, so I had 3 seconds left on it. So yeah, way too much time left ticking. That's going to take a judgment call to gauge your guild's kill time. I probably could have popped that at 50% health and got the most out of it. I think what I was trying to do is time it with Emulate to get the full spell damage off the Emulate into Shadow Bolt, but really that's a mistake. I probably should just be pure Shadow Bolting at that point. Alright, so these guys are a pain for a lot of guilds. What I like to do is just have a lesser nature. You can see it right here. Lesser nature poison, or lesser, a regular nature protection potion, sorry, and a regular shadow active for this. So yeah, I look for the reflect if it's not already identified by like a weak aura or something. I think I had some wacky add-ons, so that's why I wasn't able to like see everything before it happened. He had shadow volley, so you move in quickly. I waited for one cast to move in, and also, you know, I was reapplying all my stuff. So I was a little bit behind here, and I lost out on some damage, so that's not good. So yeah, I could have optimized a little bit better there. Whenever there is we always hug right side. Your guild may hug left, or you might stay in the middle and just have everybody figure it out. But either way, you know that there's a plague situation, so move out quickly if there is plague. If it's going to be shadow volley, everybody moves in. Thunderclap, move out. That's why those protection potions come really handy, because like, let's say you're just a little bit too close to one side or the other, you'll absorb that damage instead of getting hit for quite a bit and there'd be no pushback, right, if you do get hit, so you can continue to cast without worry about pushback. So yeah, I moved in quickly. Here we go. We've got a fire meter too, so everyone just stack on top of each other. Also, it's not a bad idea to have a greater fire. They're really cheap right now. I usually like to have them active. You might see me scrounging to get one ready for twins themselves, like the bugs that blow up. But one thing to note is that these guys always have a reflect school, right? They're always going to reflect one school. So what I like to do is, if they, you want to pump as much damage as you can, but you also want to be as useful as you can. So if they do reflect fire and arcane, obviously get the curse up for the frost damage, and then start shadow bolting. If they're reflecting frost and shadow, then it's going to be a good idea for you to, one, get a soul fire out. It is going to be more damage than searing pain. There's a very large misconception out there that searing pain is your highest source of damage. It's just your best source of damage after soul fire, and soul fire is 30-second cooldown. So you want to do a soul fire, has 100% scaling. Then you want to do a searing pain a few times, but it is going to be better for you to swap to these ads right here and start killing them as well. So you're going to get more damage out of Shadow Bolt anyway. So just start Shadow Bolting those ads. And if they have low health, obviously, Searing Pain, Shadow Burn, whatever you need to do. But yeah, help out with the ads whenever your main damage source is being reflected, which is Shadow. So, alright, we can skip to Twins. So I might go back a little bit just so you can see what my shadow set is. And this is actually not a perfect set, I would say. You have to gauge what your guild's going to need from you as far as shadow resistance. We have been slowly going lower and lower on the total shadow resistance. I mean, I had 310 our very first kill. So obviously, way overkill. And now our healers are a little bit more comfortable and adept at handling it, and we are pumping more damage out, so I need to do more threat, which is part of the reason why I'm the spec, right? I knew I was going to be tanking, so I went and took that 10% extra fire damage and that 20% upfront immolate damage off of it, or into my destruction tree, and I did not take the corruption, instant cast corruption, or the improved life tap. I will say that I do think the spec is very, very good and competitive, but I also have been feeling the hurt on the life tapping. It's not terrible, but because I mean I'm not really tapping much at all on bosses, if I'm honest, but on trash I tap quite a bit, and I find myself having to spam tap every now and then instead of getting like 2 taps and done and getting ready for the next fight or whatever, or the next pull. I'm like, tapping away and hoping a healer looks at me, because I mean I bring plenty of food and bandages and stuff, but it still takes a little bit more time, and it's a game of seconds when you're doing speedruns. So as far as the gear that I'm wearing for my Shadow Resist set, this is easily obtained with the Red Scepter, which a lot of you probably have if you're tanking this. I got a double Shadow Ring. I'm wearing 2-piece rank 12 gear for the extra stam, which I think stam is king here. And then I've got some Felheart, Nemesis, Felheart again. I think I swapped that to my green Shadow Resist cloak, but what I think would actually be better is a stam cloak with a lot of spell damage on it. Or if you have the Cthulhu cloak, I think that you can swap to that. That'd be better. This ideally will be your trash drop, the 2% hit Shadow Resist chest that allow you to take a lot of other items, and it's also very good for damage in general. I think it's your second BIS or BIS right now for dealing damage, and then these are going to be your go-to unless you have a Femur or Grand Marshal Blade. Nelthir and the Shadow Resist trinket are pretty big. You probably won't get rid of this trinket for quite some time. Maybe not until next, I'm not sure. I would actually go with a 1-hit spell damage ring. If you have Cthulhu ring, that's great. If you have Band of Force, that's great. And if you have Unspoken Names, any of those rings would be great. I would actually think Unspoken Names might be a little bit better just because of that crit added on for Searing Pain. But yeah, so I would say 1 damage ring and 1 Shadow Resist ring are probably optimal. Another big deal is I think you could go with damage dealing shoulders. These do not give you a ton of shadow resistance, so it's not as valuable as some of the other items that you have. And then I wear Rock Fury, but Arcane Accuracy is just as good. Or even Nembracers. If you have 3-piece Nemesis, 23 spell damage can go a long way. But I think Nemesis is valuable enough to keep. And then yeah, Shadow Resist ring. Or wand, sorry. But yeah. So pretty typical set, nothing crazy. Oh yes, yeah, I just swapped in them. There you go. For the extra stam. See, I think I even forgot my proper Zanza. Yeah, I think I forgot it for this fight. And obviously it's not totally necessary, but still good to have that cushion, and I'll get almost 10k health with that Zanza up, and no Flask of Titans at all. So more than enough health. So yeah, I'm around 215, maybe 225 Shadow Resist, and I think you could go as low as 190. You could probably go lower than that, but it just depends on how sweaty your healers are. One thing to remember on this fight is that it is vital that the Warlock be allowed to pull for the threat affinity. Number one, having that threat affinity is big. Hashtag ProBlazer on that one. He likes to talk about it a lot. But 2, it's a lot easier for the hunter / warrior to get an immediate hit instantly on Veclor, and it's very hard for you to get a Soulfire off on Veclash if they're pulling. Oh, sorry, I'll post it the way around. So yeah, I usually get a Soulfire. He resisted it, That fucking sucks. And then immolate. And that allows me to get some immediate threat so that they can start their casting. I'll put the curse up and I immediately start Searing Pain. It's not worth me taking him further back this way because I'm going to lose time on building my threat and they're going to lose time on damage. It just takes too long. So I just bring him down to the bottom of the stairs, have my warrior tank get ready, and as soon as the twins swap, he's going to grab him and pull him right around here so that there's less distance to travel in between the two, and we can optimize damage and all that jazz. Other than that, it's pretty simple in Tank and Spank. You know, depending on your guild, you may not need to be the spec I am. I just wanted to optimize my threat, and I also got that 15% stam in my demonology tree by doing this. Always try and get as much damage out as you can, you know. Squeeze out what you can. Whenever Veclord does swap to the other Warlock tank, I just move over there, get some Shadow Bolts out, and then what I'll do is I'll toss out an Immolate. If you are determined on making it a corruption, that's fine, but Immolate should be good. You're probably going to sack Imp anyways for fire damage, so yeah, toss an Immolate out towards the end when they're about to swap, and that way it'll be ticking, and that'll help you grab immediate threat when they do teleport, just in case, you know, you get a resisted Searing Pain, because everybody that plays Warlock knows that we're very far from hit cap. But yeah, other than that, went pretty smooth. And yeah, it takes a while for them to pull threat. I think I did have a pretty gnarly Ignite chase me within like 2k of my threat before, but I also wasn't nearly as geared as I am now, so I expect them to have a really hard time ever catching my threat with this current build. You can always run SM Ruin or just DS, regular DS Ruin. DS Ruin's fine. You'll probably not have any threat issues. I doubt you will. SM, you're running a major risk. One, you're losing out on fire damage, so that's 15% threat at least, right there, that you're losing out on. Two, you are missing out on 15% stam, so you're gimping your raid in the form of survivability and damage/threat. So I wouldn't do it. If you're not tanking anything, SM Ruin is an amazing spec. It's my favorite one by far. And it does tons of damage. It's a little RNG, you know, so you're chasing landfall procs, but it's a lot of fun. And that max range on all your spells is obviously cushiony. So let's see, once we kill Twin Imps, we have some of the harder trash in AQ, but also I think some of the most fun because it really challenges your knowledge and your execution of mechanics as a player. So yeah, these Slayer packs, this is a full Slayer pack. Normally we like to clump them up and get an AoE off and then get out. I had a lip active, but I didn't feel like I needed it right then and there. Excuse me. But this is the same thing. It's a multi-target fight. So what I'm trying to do is optimize by getting Immolates up on multiple targets, and then getting in a safe position where I'm not going to get silenced or feared, and shadow bolting away, which is obviously going to be the most damage I can get. I may have misplayed by doing that way. This is just how I did it this fight. I think that the Immolate is not as important as the shadow bolt, or the corruption even. As a SM Ruin Warlock, you can multi-dot. It's going to literally take you more time than it took me to get these Immolates up, so you have to find what's worth it for you. Do you need to corrupt 4 targets? Probably not. I would say 3 and then start shadow bolting, because if you have 3 corruptions up or 8 corruptions up, you still aren't guaranteed the proc, so you might as well get some real damage out and shadow bolt stuff. So this is another good chance for me to throw a grenade in there. I did not do so. Also, I lost out on a little bit of damage this raid because I was doing that arcane bomb testing. These mobs have mana, and they do cast a silence. So I was assuming that there's a chance that I could burn that mana, do damage to them, and then squeeze out some extra damage, because arcane bomb is known to scale with spell power. So I was hoping to min-max pretty hard for this DMF, and it fell flat. So don't buy any Arcanite, guys. Typically, what we do is our kill targets go Slayers, Mind Slayers, and then the champions. But you'll see a couple of pulls where, you know, you're basically just killing what's optimal for you to kill based on your positioning. But part of that also goes into, you know, choosing the right spot to start. So right now we're pulling everything straight into us, which is probably not ideal. I think what we should have done is we should have pulled it to these sides so that we could push in with the range and kill everything appropriately. So like, here's what I'm doing. Skull's going to go down. I know that. I'm trying to get out of it. I don't want to get feared by it when it dies. So then I'm going to get in a position for killing square and X. I move to X. That's a bug. Debuffing Moon, getting some extra damage out just in case I get mind flayed or feared, because, you know, that's the worst, is you lose control of your character and you're just not doing any damage. So at least the dots help like that as far as these pulls for a Warlock. You're still trying to cursive wreck the melee that get mind control. But yeah, most important thing is being able to pump out Shadow Bolt. So like if I was able to get, okay, yeah, I got it, one more, nice. If I can get just enough Shadow Bolts out, that's perfect. What I think happened there too is I wasn't able to get that Shadow Burn off in time, and that sucks. Let's move up a little bit to another big pull. So these guys are a little congregated. I'm in an unideal situation. I think we had to do some AoE because these bugs were going on healers. But essentially, that guy doesn't like me. I'm getting mind flayed. I got really lucky here. Someone healed me in time. We know that square is about to go down. People have to lose their control of their character, so you want to LOS around these columns right here. That's really useful here. I think I'm max range on this guy right now, and I should be helping kill Moon, so I made a mistake here. But I was already casting, and I wanted to finish. Right, it's never worth clipping the damage. Optimize your damage, everything will die faster. That's just how it goes. Granted, there are targets that are very dangerous, so obviously, if you can, you want to kill them first. This guy's probably the least dangerous if picked up appropriately, and the healers are taking care of their tanks. And priests have the capacity to dispel them when they get I think it's a blue buff on the champions that makes them hit a lot harder. They can be purged, essentially. So this is a good chance for AoE. I think we actually do the AoE. I'm immolating, I'm preemptive, I might even sapper here. Yep, did the sapper, so that's good damage. If I had a bop, or if I was comfortable and had a bop, I probably would have hellfired, but they got moved, you know, all separated pretty quickly. And that ruined my damage, so that immolate was a good idea. Or corruption, whatever you want to do. And now I'm here just trying to get some Shadow Bolts out. So LOS on the rest, or they're all dead. Moving into the champion, prio kills, very simple. So we can move forward. There's not a whole lot to see here. These Anubis Sass, I also tried to Arcane Bomb I think they're called nullifiers, these packs. Because they mana drain, they gain mana over time, they cast spells, so I figured, you know, obviously if they can mana drain them, we can Arcane Bomb, but that's not the case. Yep, there's one. See, immune, no damage out of any of it. So, there you go, guys. Very simple. Curse the main target. These two don't have enough health to warrant the curse right away, and they're going to die from cleave pretty quickly. So, just get as much damage as you can out of it, and curse the Anubis Order. These packs are a little bit easier to deal with because you have all this room in here. All I'm doing right now is waiting to see where the tanks pull these guys in position, getting as far as I can from any Mind Slayer. I played it a little close because I had a lip, but I think I suffered here and got silenced. So that is one thing to think about, is if you're like being extremely conservative, maybe distance yourself from all of the targets. That way you know you can get maximum damage uptime on it. Okay. Oro. Oh. So I want to show the Oro pull. There it is. So that's a Soulfire. They are allowing me to be the first one up for the threat affinity and to get some fire damage out. So I'm finding my max range here. I messed up. So I'm way behind on threat, and I get sandblasted because our tank messed up. And instead of taking the sandblast right here and letting this group be consolidated in a thin line, which it's supposed to be, they're making mistakes too. and I was taking that 210 degree angle as well, and getting threat and the sandblast towards us, he brought it over to us. So we all got sandblasted. So the warlocks are now having trouble catching. So now there's a mage on top. That's not good. Good. So then we have a warrior catch up. But yeah, a lot of mistakes made here. This is essentially a cheese strat where they have warlocks. Also, I think I messed up. Yep, look, I have a salve. So yeah, really big mistakes on our first DMF week. It's important to, one, make sure that the position is never adjusted. These guys need to be much tighter. We needed to have a better start, be closer up, and I needed to be faster on that. So yeah, this other warlock Sniffs that's tanking with me did a good job. He moved out when the sandblast timer started, not when the cast started. I waited for the cast. I also am using a movement Zanza, so that gives you an idea of how fast the sandblast can occur. Also, notice how fast we killed him. We realized that if you're really juiced, if you're a really good guild, this warlock strat really slows you down because it causes some DPS to have to throttle. So what you'll probably do is just do a pure line. Instead of the warlocks being over there, you just have DPS on one side, healers on one side, and then the tank on the other side, straight up. And let him eat sandblast, and you just rotate sandblast between 3 people chasing threat, because you could probably kill him in 3 to 4 sandblasts. I think it might still be viable to have a warlock group chase the threat margin without salve, and they could just, like, say wear rocket boots or something, and whenever they're gonna get the sandblast, they can move out towards the end after maybe 2 or 3 warriors have eaten it. That way, when you're approaching his like 15% health margin execute phase, you don't want to sandblast the raid, so that makes it a little comfy. But really, good guilds are managing it appropriately without the warlock tanking strat. That's just cheese if you're having, I would say, anywhere from 5 to 8 sandblasts that you have to eat in your guild, and it's probably worth trying. That was another good example of me being emberstorm, right? I'm a deep fire spec, so my threat is a lot higher than a lot of other warlocks are going to have. Most of them do not run that spec. The main reason I decided to do that is because I wanted to make sure that we had no threat issues, which can be a big problem. And then 2, I did the math on it, and Immolate does more damage than Corruption even without critting if you are spec'd into that fire. So that 10% damage plus 20% up front really helps. If you have the 5% 3-piece 2.5 gear, AQ 2.5 gear bonus, then it would be even higher up there on the chain. It's not much, it's like 20 DPS higher, but still useful. And that's without critting. It obviously has the capacity to crit, so the upfront damage can be even higher, and it always outperforms Corruption. Granted that Corruption is just a little bit easier to deal with. The quality of life thing, it lasts longer, it's 18 seconds, and it's an instant cast, so you can do it on the move. So yeah, this is us getting ready for Cthulhu. I think it took us entirely too long. Have your potions ready, your gear set up ready. I think I even had to do a quick succubus sack if I didn't already have it. But Cthulhu's actually a really fun min-max boss and really easy to deal with. Pretty sure this is a success. Yeah, I was trying to remember. There's one where I got killed by our feral druid. So one, obviously help kill these claws when you can, but they have almost no health, so you're not ever going to get a shadow bolt off. If you're going to do anything, just Searing Pain or Shadow Burn, and then move to Cthulhu. Immediately kill Cthulhu as fast as you can once everyone's in position. If you start too early, you might get immediate aggro, and the I-beam could hit you and your group. So I would say just give it like 2 seconds or 3 seconds before you start DPSing. Obviously have a curse up and use your trinket or your PI cooldown right away. I did that properly right. I popped my ZHC. So I got an immediate burst out. I have not seen or I haven't noticed any guilds on Warcraft logs with sub 2-minute times. So the ZHC is a perfect trinket because you can pop it in phase 1 and smoke him, and again in the vulnerability phase. I will say that we realized, being fully juiced later on, that we could have moved a lot less on the dark glare. We were just being extra conservative the first time around, and so as a caster, if you know you don't have to make that 180 or you don't have to move a whole lot because the dark glare is in a comfortable position for you, you can pump hard in the beginning and then barely move or not move at all and just continue to cast on him and basically push him into his next phase before the dark glare even ends. Yeah. So we just get in position, slightly spread. We had a bad claw right here. We're just going to get rid of that. Right here is simple phase, phase 2. All you're doing is you're optimizing by getting as much damage out as you can on big eye tentacles, big claws, and then when the little eyes, the party of little eyes come out, just do an instant cast and it's like a searing pain as fast as you can. Boom. So I got a big one, so I gotta start killing him first. I don't even know. Yeah, I got one Shadow Bolt off. So sometimes you don't even get a Shadow Bolt off, and that's the thing. You gotta really gauge how fast your DPS is killing stuff and just sneak in as much damage as you can. Sorry for skipping ahead. It's just such a simple thing. Oh my god, we got him to vulnerability phase that fast. Yeah, vulnerability phase. Pop your trinket again. If you have a PI, grab the PI. Another reason I like that Immolate build is because you can see a couple of Dragonlings up here. So some people use Dragonlings and the AI is a little wacky, but if they do actually debuff the boss appropriately, then that means everyone's doing a significantly higher amount of fire damage. So Immolate becomes even better than Corruption in those situations. In single target boss damage, Immolate wins out pretty much every time. The only time you're not going to want to do an Immolate is obviously SM run, where you just have none of that extra fire damage, and the Nightfall proc is your go-to. Most guilds have a limited debuff slots. But yeah, that is my VoD review for AQ40. I do also have a little breakdown that I'd like to show you guys of this raid. So the things that I noticed the most are the amount of shadow bolting that me and the other warlock did. Now, this is going to be difficult to separate because obviously I was tanking on 2 bosses where I wasn't really shadow bolting at all. But you'll notice 2 things, right? Fax Xanadu is a SM build. He is going to be doing corruption, right? So he had 253,000 or almost 254,000 corruption damage over the entire course of the raid. So that's extra damage that he's getting, right, outside of the shadow bolts. He did 983,000 shadow bolt damage, where I have 369,000 immolate damage compared to his corruption. So that's not to say that my immolate against his corruption did that much more. I think I just chose to activate my immolates more often than he decided to activate his corruptions, and he probably did a better job of killing these low health targets or getting in casts that he could not finish Shadow Bolt in, because he does have 48k Shadow Burn damage and I only have 42. So that's something that I can improve on, and that's something to think about as a Warlock player. Getting Shadow Burns out is probably is a great way to pump up maybe 10 to 15k more damage out of a raid that you're probably not getting right now. I would never use it in the middle of a boss fight unless I had to be mobile, like I was on the move, because it does take up a debuff slot, and it's not actually more damage than Shadow Bolt. So, you know, when you have the opportunity, always Shadow Bolt, but Shadow Burn's great towards the end of the fight. And then something else that we can do to break this down is just look at trash fights only, right? So there's gonna be scenarios where if he should be shadow bolting and I should be shadow bolting, we should be even, right? So you can see the comparison, ignoring all the other sources of damage. He did 508k of shadow bolt, and I did 306k. So that means that I'm making some big mistakes. The only excuse that I can possibly come up with is that he may have not been as curse heavy with his curse. He was Curse of Shadows, so it's less of an important curse assign. And Curse of Elements is very big because you have multiple mages and we're getting AoE cleave. So I did probably have several instances where I'm multi-cursing and he's not. But other than that, I mean, that still wouldn't make up the 200k damage, which, yeah. It's a lot. So I'm significantly underperforming on shadow bolting, and that is something to look at too as a warlock player. If you are, being competitive with your fellow warlocks, or maybe if you're looking at someone else in a different raid group, different guild on server, or in the world, even if you're trying to be world competitive, look at how much shadow bolting they're doing compared to you. Where are they squeezing it out? Can you do it better? And that really, it does come down to shadow bolting half the time, so because it is our main source of damage. But yeah, that's all I have for my guide. I hope you all enjoyed this and found it informative. And if you wanted me to do anything else along these lines, I don't plan on doing anything until next, but I'm sure I could scrap something together. Thanks, guys.